As I walk up the stairs to St. Anne's Academy, I'm greeted by the friendly and knowledgeable Ronnie Booth, who's been volunteering here for just over 3 months. Today we'll tour both the Interpretive Center and the magnificent chapel, which holds special meaning for me. Ronnie will share the fascinating history of the Academy, originally built in the 1800s as a convent and school for girls. We'll explore the interpretive exhibits that highlight its past, including the daily lives of the sisters who lived and worked here. The tour culminates in the beautiful chapel, where my younger sister was married. She passed away from breast cancer 11 years ago, making this place deeply personal. A big thank you to Ronnie for her dedication and for giving us such an insightful and heartfelt tour of this historic site. Thank you, Ronnie.
I'm Ronnie Booth. I'm a volunteer at St. Anne's Academy on Thursdays, and so I'm going to give a tour to Corey. And so we'll start here in the students' parlor.
Alrighty.
So this was the students' parlor. The boarding students that lived upstairs, they couldn't have their visitors, their parents or friends or whatever, visit them up in the dorms, so they would come down here, and this would be their visiting area, called a parlor. We'd probably call it a living room today, right? So they would, and if you noticed the old heating, it doesn't work anymore. It's just for heritage effect, but it was a hot water heating. Is if we go over here, are you French Canadian?
No.
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 No. Okay. So this was how it was built. The original was built in 1871, and then they did in 1886 they did the annex here, and in 1910 they did the other annex.
Wow.
So it was built in stages, and we're in the first here in the 1871 block.
It's so beautiful.
Yes, it's a lovely heritage building. These are all offices now, because
It's the Ministry of Advanced Education, isn't it?
Yes, well, St. Anne's Academy was sold to the government in 1873, I believe, right, Shannon?
Sorry, what's that?
The government bought St. Anne's in 1973. And so now this is the only part, this main floor that you're going to see, is that we can see this annex here, and all above us, the second 2 floors, and the annex here are all offices. So that's my phone, just leave. That's when it was being built, and here is its completed. We're here where the Sisters of St. Anne started. This is the little cabin that they came to, 4 Sisters of St. Anne came to in the middle 1800s, so that they came to this cabin, and what they did is half of that cabin they lived in, and the other half they taught students in. But they were only in there for 2 years, from about 1858 to 1860, I think, and then they moved up on View Street to a building, a larger building, where they taught school. These are, yes, different pictures of classrooms in different eras. Pardon me?
When they had the adult business program, that was the classroom. So it was right above us, and now it's a boardroom.
Good. So all these doors are in the stained glass in them are original. And the doors here are original. And if you want to go in here, you might want to see if you can take a close-up. That's what it used to look like. It wasn't a sister's parlor. That's what it looked like. This room here, we're just going to go into in a few minutes.
Which direction do you want to go?
We're going to go right straight through here.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay, so this was the sister's parlor or living room, and the students didn't come in here. This was the place that the Sisters of St. Anne's that were teaching school here came to read, to pray, to meditate. It was their space to get away from the students. Can you notice the hot water heating?
Yes.
I haven't seen that in any building except this one. That way, the hot water heating, usually it's different.
I really appreciate your time in this tour.
You're welcome. And again, the original doors and the stained glass windows. Now, if you look up here, when you're finished, this up there is not the original, because when the government took over, it was in such bad shape that most of that had fallen off. And so what they did is with pictures and, with the pieces, they pieced together the replica of it.
Oh, so it is very similar.
It is very similar. The original was more rounder, but this is just a little more oval shape. And there's a few pictures here. This, as you can see, is later pictures of the students. They had an art program, a complete art program. When they first started, they had the basic school program. But as the different annexes went on and they had more room, then they started to have science programs, music programs, art programs. And so this was, obviously you can see an art program. Here is a picture you can see.
Come back.
You can see the sisters in the back and the students. They were having a home ec class.
Huh. You've done your research.
Well, I'm still doing it. I've only been here for about maybe 3 months. But I'm still learning, and it's a joy. It's
Right? That's
it
like
is
me.
it's a beautiful place.
I'm still
If you
there.
notice this is all original. This wood wainscoting, as they call it, is all original. If you notice, it has different. Now these different boards, they've all made to look like different woods. You know how they used to do in years ago? They used to do a different wood for different, but it wasn't the different wood, it was just a process they did. These are all donations and for gardens and building and different things that people have donated. People of Victoria love St. Anne's Academy.
They have some pretty spectacular pictures of it in the snow.
Yes, so this door goes into the other annex that we can't go into where there's offices now. And this is the kitchen for, you know, the volunteers and the staff.
Just kind of have a look down this staircase just because it's so.
Now that goes down to the basement. We can't go down there, it's just storage down there now.
I wouldn't want to go down there.
No, it's just storage. But that's the way you'd get down to the kitchen, and I'll tell you about the kitchen later. This floor is not the original floor because it was in such bad shape. They had to replace it, and I'll show you what the original floor was looking like. And then they did a good job, I think. This was a bell, it still works. That, you know, the bell, they didn't have buzzers back then, they had bells. And when you go out, if you want, you can take a picture of the outside and I'll ring the bell so you can hear it. So this bust is the St. Anne, she's the one that started all this. She came, there was 4 sisters. Do you remember me telling you back in the little house that came from Lachine, Quebec, from the mother house, of the St. Anne sisters, and St. Anne was in charge, and she started the Order of St. Anne's. And this was the first Catholic bishop on Vancouver Island, and he was Bishop Demers. He was French Canadian, and he was instrumental in getting the little house that I showed you earlier and bringing the 4 sisters here. And he was very supportive of them, and he helped them when they outgrew that little house on View Street a couple of years later. He was instrumental in helping them get that. Then after they were there until about 1872, from 1860 to 1872, till this was built. The first phase of this was built. So this is a little bit, if you can get that in, a little bit of a history of the school days. The sisters were French speaking. Because at those days, Hudson's Bay Company and the fort, and there was just a little settlement around the fort in those days, and most of them came from Quebec. And so of course the sisters of St. Anne came from Quebec, and they were French speaking, and Bishop Mears was. So this picture was originally in the sisters' parlor, and it was Sister Orset. She was one of the sisters of St. Anne's, and she painted that and donated it. Now I want to show you what the original floor looked like. They did a pretty good job, didn't
They
they?
did an excellent job. Better, actually.
Of reproducing it.
Yeah. Amazing. It's amazing.
Yes, it is.
Skilled people.
And I just seen that and I thought, I know I love to see how things originally were. So now this is, if you look through here, if you get closer, that's the sister's nursing habit. All white. And you know the hospital, St. Joseph's Hospital, across the street?
I was born there.
Yes, well, I wasn't born there. I was born in Port Alberni, but my mother was in that hospital, and I went to visit her as a teenager. You're doing such a good job.
Thank you.
You might want, I don't know if you get, these are what they did. They gutted, they had to gut most of all the walls and the windows, but they put the windows back in.
What year did that happen?
It was 1973 that they took over, and it took them about 5 years to complete it. It took a long time because they had, all the floors. They had to do everything, ceilings, walls. They did seismic upgrades.
Right.
So they had, because of the government offices, it needed to be. And those doors, again, they go through to the other annex, the building, which is offices. But in here is the bishop's office and breakfast room. And they had a bishop in residence, and was his office. And the door over there, if you can see in the corner there, that was the door he went into the confessional. The confessional is in, and I'll show you that when we go into the chapel, which is the jewel of St. Anne's, the chapel.
My sister was buried there.
Yes, yes. So that, and of course here is the different eras of programs. There was the commercial program, the typing and shorthand and things. You can see what era by the clothes. It was the 1920s about, it looks like. It doesn't say on the picture. And this is later. That was a later commercial program with typing in. And can you see the sister there? The Sisters of St. Anne were a very loving group of sisters. You often heard of how sisters were very stern and rigid. They were strict, and they had lots of rules, and they expected them to be obeyed. But they loved the students. They even did sports with them in their habits. Can you imagine? Kicking balls. There are pictures of them kicking balls and doing different volleyballs and stuff in their habits with the students. They loved them. And also, if they were a student was having trouble with math or science or a subject, one of the sisters who was proficient in that would take them and tutor them. They were very loving, but as I said, they were very strict, and they didn't believe in dancing and frivolous things. Like I said, these are the graduating classes. And the last one is 1972, the last graduating class, and the government took over and they
What year was the last graduating class?
1972. It's on this wall over here.
We would have nurses still working from that generation.
Yes, this was a school for a long time. It was a day school. They had day students as well as boarding students. Boarding students came from all over BC. The day students, of course, were moved for the area. There was one visitor came through here and told me that he was an older man. He said his mother went here as a day student, and she walked from Vic West here and back every day. Yeah. So this goes up to the classrooms, to the second floor, and then there's another stairways that goes up to the dorms from there. We can't go up there because that's offices up there.
We're going to the chapel.
Yeah. Now we can go. I don't know if you got this. This is some more reservations if you're interested in that. What they see, they took doors off and refinished them, and windows and refinished them. So and if you look at these doors, they're kind of made to look like oak. They're not. It isn't oak. It's just a finish, and they used to do that years ago. Yes, that shows about what I was telling you about Bishop Demers. And the chapel was originally erected in 1858. But then when in 1886, they replaced this chapel with the brick one uptown.
Which one?
It's up on Blanchard Street, I believe. They annexed this, or gave it, to the Sisters of St. Anne. What they did is, it was a wooden structure, I guess it still is, underneath everything. So what they did is they got some wooden logs and they put it on the wooden logs, and they got horses and they dragged it down, and it's a slope down, so it was quite the job, and they bought it and put it here. So this wasn't originally here. The Sisters of St. Anne's had a little chapel up on the second floor, but that was closed and made into a classroom when they received this. Now the floors are original, but I can't find anything that says if they're original from when it was built or original from when it came here in 1868. The pews are solid oak, and they're not original. They from the 1930s. And originally they had what they used to have in the churches those days, you know, the bench type with just the plain plank back. Now, all these stations, Catholic stations, they're the crucifix, and they start and go around, and they're original. The stained glass windows are all original as well. And so are these stations that you're looking at right now. The center one and the ones on either side are original. You can tell that because of the original pictures taken. Now these paintings are also original. They were painted by a sister in Lachine, Quebec, the mother house, the pictures, and donated. Now if you look up here, the organ, and it still works. And your sister probably had that organ playing at her wedding. It's from 1930, that organ. It's not the original. This is no longer a Catholic chapel. It was annexed, decommissioned when the Sisters of St. Anne left and sold it to the government. So it is now a chapel that can be rented by any denomination or non-denominational. All they need to do is to agree to the rules and supply their own organist and their own officiator. And they sign a contract and rent this. This is the confessional that I was telling you about from the breakfast room for the bishop. And the doorway was over there. And he would come in and hear the confession. Yes. This original door was there. This is not the original door. The original door to the confessional is that one right there. Yes. So and that's the steps that go up to the organ. We're not allowed to go up there, but they're very steep. Okay, there's one more thing that I want to tell you is you need to come here again and you need to look up at the roof. All the gold you see is 24 gold leaf paint. And the whole roof it has been restored to the original. It looked like this originally. The paint color, I'm not sure, we're not sure. We don't have any record of that because all the pictures are black and white. But they just thought, I guess, that the blue was a beautiful background for the. So all the gold that you see, all in this room is 24 karat gold paint.
Wow.
Now, do you know Providence Farm? Have you heard in Duncan about Providence Farm? Okay.
I have.
You have heard of it?
Yes.
Okay, I want to show you one thing. This window here, if you see under it, it says, "In memory of Mother M. Providence." That's Mother Mary Providence. She was the one that went up and that started Providence Farm in Duncan. And she started it as a school for the First Nations children. And she preempted, which means that she applied and received from the powers to be at that time about 20 acres of land. And when she went up there wasn't a town. There was a village of First Nations, and there was some trappers and some Hudson's Bay people there. But she started a school. And because they needed to eat, and they needed to feed most of the children during the day, they had a farm. And so they grew cattle, they had chickens, they had milk cows, they had a big garden in that, and that was called Providence Farm. Well, that land, the sisters still own up until just a few years ago. But there was somebody that came to them and said, "We want to do a rehabilitation program, and could we lease your farm area to do this?" Because they had writing programs, for autistic children, and they had gardens by people that were challenged physically, intellectually, and so they did. They got a lease on that land from the Sisters of St. Anne, and that program is going today, and it's gotten bigger and bigger and more successful.
Isn't that what we want? Hey?
And they came a few years ago the people that started that, and they wanted to renew the lease, the Sisters of St. Anne's, they gave them the land and said, as long as you use it for this, and they gave it. So I thought that would be interesting for you to know.
Wow.
That was one of that was Sister Mary Providence, and she was one of the sisters. She wasn't one of the 4 original that came. She came after, but she was the one that went to Duncan. And you know, they were so successful that they even sent beef down here for this school here, because they were so successful up there with
Wow,
yeah.
what an incredible story. And I think
So I thought that was an interesting little sidelight.
Thank you so much for your tour.
Thank you for letting me do this, Corey. I'm thrilled to do it.
Thank you.
And so I hope this is going to be useful to you or enjoyable for you, whatever you use it for, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.